Hello, everyone. Welcome back to 3 News Now. I'm Stephanie Haney. Today is Monday, April 12th. I have your top stories from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. Thank you for choosing to be here to get filled in on the stories that most people are clicking on here in Northeast Ohio. We start with an update on the police killing of Daunte Wright. This happened yesterday afternoon in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, very near Minneapolis. What we are now learning is that the police chief for Brooklyn Center says that the officer who shot Daunte Wright, according to that officer, was trying to tase Daunte Wright, but instead pulled out the gun and shot him one time, the 20-year-old. His mother, Katie Wright, told other outlets that he was driving to get a car wash when he was pulled over. The police reported that he was pulled over for expired registration tags, and it was also noted that he had air fresheners hanging from his rear view mirror, and people are now outraged over the killing of another black man in Minnesota. What we are now learning about what's happening there is that the police chief did release body camera footage, and we do have that on WKYC.com if you would like to see it. Now, people in the community are calling for the firing of this officer, which has been placed on administrative leave. One person calling for the firing is the mayor in Brooklyn Center. However, it's not up to the mayor in that area. It's the city manager's call, not the mayor's call in Brooklyn Center, to determine what happens with the police department. And the city manager said that the officer involved would receive due process and did not comment on whether that officer would be fired. Now, there have been demonstrations in the area. There was a curfew in the area that was lifted at 6 a.m. this morning. Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz posted on social media saying that he was praying for Wright's family after another black man's life was taken by law enforcement. Those are the words of Minnesota's governor. Now, Brooklyn Center, as I mentioned, very close to Minneapolis. It's about a 17-minute drive up the interstate from Minneapolis, which is where former officer Derek Chauvin is on trial for the killing of George Floyd. This is week 3 in the Derek Chauvin murder trial, day 11, and the prosecution is expected to call use of force expert and George Floyd's brother, and the judge anticipates that the prosecution will rest its case either today or tomorrow. At that point, the defense will begin its case and be able to call its own witnesses. As a reminder, Chauvin is charged with second-degree murder, second-degree manslaughter, and third-degree murder related to the killing of George Floyd, which happened on May 25th, where bystander video and body camera footage shows Chauvin kneeling on Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. Earlier today, the jury heard from a cardiologist who testified as an expert witness about the low levels of oxygen at the time of his death, and the doctor said this. This is a quote from Dr. Jonathan Rich. "I can state with a high degree of medical certainty that George Floyd did not die from a primary cardiac event, and he did not die from a drug overdose." These are both arguments that the defense is expected to make when they present their own experts, when they present their own witnesses in the coming days. And the judge has anticipated that the jury could begin deliberating a week from today, April 19th, if the defense moves through its case throughout the course of the next week. Of course, we've got all those updates for you on WKYC.com. Something you may have seen today is that FEMA will pay funeral expenses for people who have died from COVID-19. And yes, that is true. Our Verify team looked into this, and the federal agency does have the authority to do this in all disaster situations, actually, once a president declares a situation to be a disaster. So the Verify team talked with Elizabeth Zimmerman, who is the former FEMA Associate Administrator for the Office of Response and Recovery. And Zimmerman said that typically funeral expenses in a disaster are covered on a cost-sharing basis, which means FEMA would pay 75% and the states would be responsible for 25%. However, Congress did now authorize FEMA $2 billion to pay for funerals and also to pay 100% of the cost of those funerals. So, as a result, FEMA will pay up to $9,000 for funeral expenses per person who has passed away related to COVID-19. So basically, the claim process will start with the death certificate, and the death certificate must say the death was either caused by or related to COVID. Now, a lot of people have died, so you might be wondering what happens if that $2 billion runs out. Well, Zimmerman said that Congress set aside $50 billion in order to replenish FEMA's disaster accounts, and then the agency would tap into that money if that $2 billion gets completely exhausted covering these funeral expenses. Also, if there was already a funeral in your life, you can apply for reimbursement. So it's not something that can only be from this point moving forward. This is retroactive to 2020 deaths related to COVID-19. Let's take a look at the latest COVID-19 numbers. These come from Johns Hopkins University. Globally, the total number of cases is now at 136,265,095. The total number of deaths is now 2,940,055. Here in the U.S., the total number of cases is at 31,222,346. The total number of deaths is now at 562,275. Now, the U.S. is leading the cases and the deaths globally by a lot. We did, however, see the percentage of cases ticking down by 0.2 percentage points since we talked on Friday. We now have 22.9% of the global COVID cases here in the U.S. and 19.1% of the global COVID deaths. Here in Ohio, we have the latest numbers from the Ohio Department of Health. There have been 1,934 new reported cases of COVID in the last day, and the total number of deaths has not changed since Friday because remember, again, the Ohio Department of Health is now strictly reporting deaths that say COVID-19 on the death certificate, and we do not have new data since Friday. We've seen 89 new hospitalizations in the last day, and there are now 1,236 people in the hospital. 315 of those are in the ICU. We haven't seen this number over 300 in a little while now, so that's a bit concerning. And of those, we've seen 18 new ICU admissions in the last day. Taking a look at the vaccination picture here in Ohio, almost 23%, almost 1/4 of all Ohioans have completed their vaccination protocols. That's more than 2.6 million people, and more than 28,000 people completed that in the last day. Now, over 35% of Ohioans have started the vaccination process. That's more than 18,000 in the last day, and a total of more than 4.1 million people here in Ohio. So those numbers there keep going up, and those are numbers that we are excited to see keep going up. Now, I want to talk about something quickly that is an unexpected maybe side effect of what people have been dealing with in the pandemic, and it's related to being on Zoom all the time and using face filters and having screens in our face all the time. It's apparently affecting our body image even more so during the pandemic. Now, I talked with a board-certified plastic surgeon about this, a psychologist, and a person who has had cosmetic enhancements on my 3 Things to Know with Stephanie Haney podcast this week. I talked with plastic surgeon Dr. Michael Watnowski of the Ohio Clinic for Aesthetic and Plastic Surgery. I talked with Cleveland Clinic psychologist Dr. Susan Albers, who's an expert in body dysmorphia, an esthetician, and someone who has had facial enhancements, Jana Weaver, about this. And all of them said that they have noticed an increase in people dealing with body image issues since the pandemic. Jana was very forthcoming. She said that she'd been getting Botox for quite some time, but she's added lip fillers and cheek fillers now that she's been seeing herself all day long on Zoom. And Dr. Watnowski shared that he has seen a significant increase in people wanting facial procedures. Dr. Albers shared that more people are coming in to be treated for body dysmorphia, and that she could tell because she's moved into teletherapy that when she speaks with people over Zoom that they're very distracted, they're looking at their faces, and it's something that people just haven't had to deal with. So we have a very open, candid conversation about it. If you want to check that out, you can find 3 Things to Know with Stephanie Haney on every podcast platform, and it is linked at WKYC.com. Turning our attention to the sports world, Jadeveon Clowney was supposed to be here in Cleveland for his second free agency visit with the Cleveland Browns today, but apparently there were some travel issues. NFL reporter Josina Anderson, she's the one who first reported that he would be here on Monday and there was a deal expected to be done on Monday, but she also said that there were travel issues, and the belief now is that hopefully they will strike a deal mid-week. That's the goal for Clowney, according to these reports, potentially for the Cleveland Browns. Now, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler says that both the Baltimore Ravens and the Indianapolis Colts have been keeping an eye on Clowney, but Cleveland has been the most aggressive in trying to get him signed in free agency. We'll be keeping an eye on that for sure. And here's something you need to know. Our Doug Tratner is taking a look at pizza places this week for the Save Our Sauce Roundup. Save Our Sauce, in case you're not aware, this is a campaign where 3 News is highlighting places where you can go to eat. You can support local restaurants and, help them get through this thing and treat yourself to some delicious food. Well, Doug Tratner is focusing on pizza this week. Here's a couple of the places that he recommends. Salted Dough in Broadview Heights. Now, this is if you want to get your pizza from Jeff Fisher, who's a veteran of Crust, Touch Supper Club. He's now opened Salted Dough in Broadview Heights, and they don't just have pizza on the menu. They have lots of other things as well. They've got meatballs, they've got ravioli, they've got gnocchi, they've got nightly specials, all kinds of good stuff there. And another option for you, Chatty's. This is brand new in Bay Village, and this comes from Michael Simon. And Matthew Chatty Harland opened up this. It's a casual Italian eatery in Bay Village. It doesn't come from Michael Simon. Matthew Chatty Harlan has been a longtime team member of Simon's Restaurants here in the Northeast Ohio area. And this is located in the Metro Parks Huntington Reservation. It's family friendly. They've got 2 different styles of pizza, New York style and grandma style. It sounds interesting. They've got all kinds of other things on the menu as well. Charcuterie boards, burrata salad, meatball sandwiches, beer, wine, and cocktails. So make sure you check that out. And I'm just going to throw in one more for you. This is not in the greater Cleveland area, but it's in my hometown of Canton, Ohio. Papa Bear's Pizza Oven. It is delicious. It is doughy. It is saucy. It is to die for. And one of my favorite parts about it is the hard cheese that kind of gets cooked onto the crust. If you're in the Canton area, you've got to check it out. And if you're already in Canton, you probably already know about Pizza Oven, but it's worth the drive. I can attest to that. And I can also personally share that I've had it flown out to me via FedEx in both New York and Los Angeles for 2 different birthdays because it is that good. And if you're not in the Ohio area, you can do that. And if you want to know how to do it, just DM me because I think that everyone needs to know about Pizza Oven. Okay, that's it for your 3 News Now update for Monday, April 12th. I'll see you next up on What's New with your trending stories in the Clicking in Cleveland segment. I'll see you back here tomorrow for more 3 News Now. Between now and then, everybody stay safe and be well. I'm Stephanie Haney.